The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode is the Bad Batch Report.
Don't look down! Don't look down!
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and the person making introductory noises to our podcast episode is Ken Napzok. Ken always makes the fun noises. That's our setup. And I get to have the fun, Ken, of guessing what noise you're going to make. I was thinking there might be a great Emperor Sheev Palpatine cackle of bureaucratic evil. But instead, there was some joyful fear from Wrecker.
Yeah. I want to wreck a remix. You know, someone with some skills on a soundboard there, making like a "Don't look down, don't look down." That's what I want.
Oh man! Now I'm tempted. One could make a great techno beat with the grunts and groans and sighs of Wrecker in particular.
Indeed.
The constant noises of Wrecker are one of our almost constant companions as we talk about the Bad Batch. This was the sort of a mid-season spectacular, a 2-episode event. Both episodes not broadcast. That's not the verb anymore. Released on Disney Plus. We are going to be talking about episode 7. The title of that one is Clone Conspiracy. It is written by Ezra Nachman, directed by Nathaniel Villanueva, and continuing story editor credit to Matt Michenovitz. The second episode is episode 8, Truth and Consequences, written by Damani Johnson, directed by Stuart Lee, and again, story editor Matt Michenovitz. These are some of the titles I was most intrigued by when they released the titles early of, Clone Conspiracy. That sounds really cool and interesting. Which clone? What could it be? Truth and Consequences at the time was like, I don't know. That title's kind of generic. Turns out I was wrong. That's exactly what's at stake in these episodes, I thought.
I agree with you there. And what's the truth? What's the consequences? And is it just a city in New Mexico? But I absolutely love it. And yeah, the Clone Conspiracy. I think all of us, it's like if you're a football fan, you get the schedule for the year and for your favorite team and you circle a date. Oh, we got our rival on this one. Oh, I circled this title, The Clone Conspiracy. I want answers. I want more questions, and we got it.
Yeah, and our circling energies were rewarded, I think. We have a couple of bits of business right before we get into diving deep into this 2-parter. We always want to let you know when particular episodes are going to be unshackled when it comes to talking about politics. Restate our perspective again is, hey, everything is political. Star Wars in particular has always been political. It can also be enjoyed for fun escapism of, hey, laser swords and pew pew. Absolutely. And sometimes we try to be a little bit of a lighter touch on the politics because sometimes people just need a little bit of a break. But when an episode, in my opinion, this arc, is so tied to ideas of how we make choices about who our society is, who gets decisions, who gets to make decisions, how power is abused, who gets treated well. When it's so clearly political, the real world does bleed into our conversation sometimes. Do you think that's fair to say, Ken?
Yeah, always fair to say. And the reason we do that is we just want to acknowledge it. And that's sometimes, the state of the world. You just want to go watch some laser swords and maybe a riot race or two, and that's actually not just okay. That's truly a way to take care of your mental health. But yeah, these episodes, you enter the Senate chambers, you're going to get some talk inspired by both history and things currently going on.
Yeah. Current history. The other thing that we wanted to shout out quickly is that we do have a new video up on YouTube. If you're a regular listener, you've probably heard us talking about it. Maybe you're just checking in on one of our review episodes like the Bad Batch Report, but we've launched a new show called Figure Fights where we decide which action figure, not the character, but the specific action figure of the character would win in a comedy battle. Our first episode features ripped Luke Skywalker from the Power of the Force 2 line in 1995 and the brand spanking new action figure Retro Darth Vader from the Dark Times. So if you're interested, that's up on our YouTube page. Check it out. But for now, Ken, let's get into political figures fighting in these episodes. We always talk about our viewing experience. Did you stay up late? Did you have the midnight experience, or did you watch the screeners that we are, of course, lucky to have?
Yeah, stuck with the screeners. Still yet to have that midnight experience. This would have been a good one. Would have been a good one. But I couldn't watch it at midnight because I had to get up early to watch it in the morning and do this episode. So there you go. But no, not yet on the midnight, but a lot of fun. And this was you had kind of tipped me off like, hey, some big stuff coming. And it was the mid-season, the two-parter mid-season cliffhanger, so to speak. We didn't even know what it was, but you kind of figured it's the mid-season event. So I made sure I made a nice dinner, sat down, put on the headphones, stared at my email address over everyone's face, and enjoyed the episodes a couple days ago.
Yeah, I've gotten into the rhythm of usually watching on Friday morning. It's almost a Saturday morning cartoon, but instead it's a Friday morning cartoon. I love watching these in the morning when I'm fresh. There's that great tradition of watching animation in the morning for people of our generation who grew up with the Saturday morning cartoons. These are pretty heavy Saturday morning cartoons. But I was just, I was eating my English muffins. They had a little bit of salmon on them. It's very fancy. And my jaw dropped over my salmon English muffins at what these episodes were. I was so thrilled. And we joke about the screeners coming with your email emblazoned right in the middle of them, and sometimes how it lines up. And there's that shot that was in the trailers of Palpatine rising and his eyes flicking up. And it was legitimately terrifying that Palpatine's glaring yellow eyes of hate emerged right above my email. I felt like this is the most Palpatine has ever looked into my soul. Like, please, I'm not opening an attachment if you send me an email, Palpatine. This is terrifying.
Don't reply all.
Reply at will, Commander. Yeah. So it was a very great viewing experience. And yeah, I texted you because I was like, has Ken watched it yet? I can't wait. Can't wait. And now I don't have to wait anymore. So what was your overall reaction to this two-parter? Love it, like it, struggle with it? Where'd you go?
Oh man, I the only thing I struggled with was that there wasn't a third part there. It could have kept going for me, but from the opening shot, of course, in a night with that great music cue, just pulled in. Love everything that it's presenting here. We're gonna take a look at the pull it apart as we always do, but just I want to stop off at the Senate chamber. Still one of the best designed locations in Star Wars, and great use of it, both empty and full. The way kind of a masterclass in a lot of ways of taking real world themes and just shoving them inside of Star Wars. Just there you are, right in the center, but also keeping it Star Wars and choosing my words carefully. When you have some creators who are really in the Star Wars mix, not just as fans, but just, hey, let's pull characters back in, not because we have a generic character and, Pablo gave us a name. Now that name, we know what we want to do with these characters. We know what we want to do with this Star Wars lore. We have a big thing, the Imperial Stormtrooper program. That could have just been a lore checkbox. Instead, it is a very powerful series of a couple episodes here, dealing with all these real world themes. I just love kind of playing around in that world in that way. And then, we often talk here and I've seen it on Twitter, and it's just kind of a shared thing. If you're a Bad Batch fan or a Clone Wars fan or a Star Wars animation fan, you're going to get landing sequences. You're going to get long shots of ships flying in. And this episode, there was a couple of those and a couple moments where the characters were walking. Cade and Slip come to mind. And I don't know. You could make a little fun, loving joke about the ship's still landing. But these episodes and this show really know how to slow down and breathe when they need to, and just kind of feel it builds the tension. You get into the characters when that conversation was happening between Cade and Slip. That's where it hit me. It's just like they know what they're doing here. They're really taking their time. They're not rushing ahead. It's not all action and pew pew, and they know how to deliver it. So hey, the professionals, no surprises there. And the final note, sorry, sir, final note.
No,
this came to my mind. I am glad that this series hasn't become, though there's been moments of it and there'll be moments again, hasn't become Crosshair just chasing them down every step of the way. We haven't seen a lot of Crosshair, right? One episode, maybe. What? Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah, and I think this arc really raises the question of how is this all going for Crosshair?
Yeah, because we have another clone assassin kind of character show up, which was great design, by the way, too, on that. But that could have been Crosshair. Not that you would have had him trapped and killed here, but just
Mhm.
why you don't have a Crosshair. But beyond that, this could have been Crosshair involved. I'll get them. I know them. Like, it could have been that. And that would just be simple and straightforward. I'm glad I'm not writing the series. I'll be able to do other things with it. And I'm waiting to see. Like, I want to know, what does he start to think about these things as they come across his soul? So we'll see.
Yeah. Is he going to be booted out with his little clone knapsack and say, "Hey, you're done.
You're done.
Thanks. Bye."
Yep.
He was sort of Rampart's tool, and Rampart didn't even
Mhm.
fully trust him, which is, I think, one of the reasons that he wasn't the assassin. And now Rampart's rule seems to be done. So
Mm.
Crosshair's probably feeling pretty lonely about now, but we will see.
Yeah. So anyways, those are my overall thoughts.
Yeah, I really, really agree with a lot of your overall thoughts. I think the animation side has always been great at mood. It's always been great at really pulling in lots of different genres and putting them through the Star Wars filter. We've had sort of espionage, political thriller episodes before, but I thought the mood was just phenomenal, particularly on the first episode. It was a political thriller. It was very reminiscent of the Bourne franchise in particular to me, because the storytelling is similar, of somebody who has been kind of thought they were doing a good thing, made to be a soldier, asked to do deeply immoral things and questioning it, and at odds with his own government,
Yeah.
But just the way it was shot, the different music in the end credits of the episode Clone Conspiracy, which was just like this great dark thriller electronica. Like, it made me want to not dance to it, but hide in shadows for my life to this music.
Ponder to it.
Ponder to it. Yeah. Question the morality of the actions I'm being asked to do to this music. Yeah. Music to question your immoral acts by. Just a great, great mood. And then the second episode, I think, continued that. It had a little bit more of this great mood of, well, this feels like a little bit more of a straightforward episode of the Bad Batch is asked to do this big, wild action. Will they succeed? Can they succeed? But it had this great conspiracy, political thriller tension, because you're like, well, they can't succeed, right? Which sets us up so well for the absolutely amazing twist that Palpatine was ready for this, wanted this, or at least was like, and if they comes out, that'll work for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the tone of it. I think the thing that makes me say my jaw dropped over my English muffin is, I love that Star Wars can be this tip of the iceberg storytelling, that it kind of throws ideas out there, and then it can take sometimes years, decades, to getting to sort of address the story or the question that it's raised. And the question of exactly what is the transition between the clone troopers and the stormtroopers. When the prequels were first out, it was like, hey, maybe stormtroopers are clone troopers, right? And then that got definitively changed. But then we've been slowly telling this story of how did the stormtroopers truly come to be. We learned that that program was Operation War Mantle in the first season of Bad Batch. But for me, there was just something so essential, so rewarding for being a long-term Star Wars fan, of any age,
Yeah.
to see both the horror and glory of Emperor Palpatine, voiced by Ian McDermott himself, declare the genesis of the Imperial Stormtrooper. There's kind of a few things that get to the heart of just absolute classic original trilogy vibes, right? But then where's it happening? It's happening during two very political episodes in a set that is designed for the prequels. It's absolutely following on the heels of the Clone Wars animated series. So it's this, in that one moment, it's a moment that fans have been kind of wondering about, questioning about, joking about, what's this actual transition? And it's all wrapped up in this sort of love letter to different eras of Star Wars coming together in this cool and horrifying way.
I really love what you're saying. I really agree with it. And I think this is a good time to maybe you and I fawn over the Palpatine moment before we then tear him apart and tear it down. I thought this was is this hyperbolic? Maybe. I'm basking in the glow of these episodes. I think it was one of my favorite Palpatine appearances in all of Star Wars and all of Star Wars history. Everything about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we can talk about the details because there's a ton of great details to enjoy, but I think that's another one of those how does this work question, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We see him make his speech in Revenge of the Sith and get people afraid and wanting to cheer for the idea of we're going to be so strong, no scary outsider can ever touch us again, a safe and secure society, cupping the air villainously,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah.
But then there's that question. We don't really see who Mon Mothma's who's in the center when Mon Mothma's talking in Andor, right? We don't quite see. Is that Mas Amedda? You know, we've seen things in publishing, but that question of how does the evil wizard in a robe from folklore, how does he go about, you know, running the day-to-day business of the galaxy like he's not obviously an evil wizard who's trying to give a child a poisoned apple, you know? And to see the way that that's handled, the theatrics of it, to see him in this in-between state between blatant Sith Lord with blazing yellow eyes and still playing the political figurehead who has calm and wise thoughts about legislation. To see those two Palpatines merge was amazing.
Yeah, from the alarm to the look to the robe, and this is, but anyone who's done voice Palpatine before has done a wonderful job. I want to make that clear. But this is when you have someone like Ian McDiarmid there, and I would love to see behind the scenes footage of this. First of all, it's Chuchi. You said it right. Good. No Ash Oka mess or whatever from Rebels.
Ashoka.
It's Chuchi. He says all that. And by the way, I just get giddy when you have Ian McDiarmid in a VO booth and they're saying, all right, so the name is Senator Chuchi. Like what? Like that's bizarre. That's wonderfully bizarre. Similar to the Ahsoka or saying Ezra, where you're like, this is great. This is great. Kind of like what you're saying. It's Star Wars from all parts of Star Wars. Yeah. Anyways, I think you all know where I'm going. It's the way he knows to drop the voice down or to stretch the syllable. It's such a performance. It's such someone who's lived with this character for a long time. We saw with the Deborah Chow directed him via Zoom for Kenobi, where he's just like, let me do this, and what about this, and I just love watching it work. This is why you and I both say we love this character because we love Ian McDiarmid, but we also love to acknowledge he's evil at the center of it all. We're not rooting for him. It's this weird mix. I'm even staring at the Palpatine, the Emperor figure. I think you gifted me. It's still on my shelf, and I was thinking about that today. I was like, I love this figure. Why do I? Because he's bad. But it's this kind of stuff. And to what you're saying, to see how it works. And we're going to talk about the why, but just the how was impressive.
Yeah, because it's there's that image of shocking truth, which we'll talk about, the image of that imperial horror being broadcast across the Senate, right? And this goes back to even like, I used to have a stand-up bit about, hey, the Death Star was like a government program. How did he manage that evil to be like, hey, I'd like to appropriate some funds for something called the Death Star, right?
Yeah.
And now we know it's a little bit more secret, but it's also that like, how did he spin the militarism in the horror of the Empire? And it raises that question when you see it. The image is right there. The horror of the Empire is right there. Yeah. And then the theatrical way he rises kind of speaks to that. I'm going to force the Senate and the government and the galaxy to kind of have two truths. One where we pay lip service to the idea that the Senate still has power and the Senate is still voting, and one where everybody knows the secret truth that I am the power. Yeah. The theatrics of the way he rises like a dictator and everybody hushes and he whispers and makes them lean in and kind of just tells them how to vote, right? Like they still have some power and maybe they could go against him and he doesn't need to manipulate that. All that stuff is true. But the way this is presented is such we're going to all agree to the lie that this is still a democracy, even though it's called the Empire. But then in every other facet, in the way I present myself, the theatrics of it, the truth is that I'm the power. And we're not going to say it out loud, but we all know it, right?
Yeah. the gears of democracy come to a grinding, dramatic halt with those alarms.
Yeah. And that really is the shut up, evil daddy's coming, and he gets to
Really,
decide.
it is.
Yeah.
It was so. I mean, God, I don't want to say wonderful again. Everyone listening knows what I mean, and you know what
Yeah.
I mean. You know what I mean? It just was like you said, jaw dropping. Yeah, I didn't have salmon on my English muffin, but I would have dropped the salmon off the muffin in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I just recently got the newly released vintage collection Stormtrooper. So it's the original card, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It just there's nothing more classic to me than the original Stormtrooper figure. And to see it being kind of the heart of this episode, like I said, was just it was really affecting.
Yes, it was.
Any other oohing and awing about Palpatine or big picture thoughts that you wanted to share?
No, I'm sure it will come up again, but yes, I think this is a shared experience with all of us Star Wars fans. Like, we just love the Emperor. You shouldn't want to hear his point of view or root for him, but we do love having him around.
No, I love the storytelling of him, and I love all of the sort of aspects in different ways that we might view an utterly corrupt, awful human.
Yeah.
In this wonderful character, wonderful performance. A final big picture thing for me is obviously there was a huge connection to the Clone Wars animated series with characters, locations, storytelling, all continuing in this episode. But there's also like so people have watched the Clone Wars maybe more than once, watched it in broadcast release sequence and been a little confused, and then went, oh, okay, and then watched it in actual chronological order, and learned the weird backstory that in the first couple seasons in particular that Lucas would do kind of a flashier story, and then in usually season 3, he'd go, actually, I want to do a much more dense, much more blatantly political prequel episode to that episode from season 1 or season 2. And watching these episodes, it just felt like embracing that storytelling, that the first part of this two-parter feels like the prequel episode Lucas would have gone back to tell in season 3 of Clone Wars. The main characters aren't there. It's blatantly political. There's some action, but not a ton. And then the second episode is like the more exciting one that would have been broadcast without as much setup, in season 1 or 2 of Clone Wars.
That's a great observation. That would have been the episode 8 would have been episode 1, right? And back in the day on Cartoon Network or something. And no shade to the way it had to be run, the way it was run. I just love that George had the ability to do that with his team. And I think you're absolutely right. And this first episode, it's so funny. We're about to get into some politics, both in Star Wars, maybe in real world, but it was so fun to just have this roll call of political all-stars show up, even from Rogue One with Pamela and Chuchi. And it was just like, It was fun to go back to those Clone Wars days of, but let's go back to when the motion was put into play here in the political arena. Loved it. Great observation.
Yeah, it was thrilling. And I think, I love that Lucas said, like, hey, I can really do whatever I want. And I want to get into the real weeds of why did this happen? And, I think that's valuable. So let's get into why things happened, how they happened. For you, what was the big idea? What's the big idea? What ideas were at stake in this episode? What were some of the main themes from your perspective?
Well, it's the deal. Here's the thing. All right, so there's some things, and I can't wait to. And I might just pitch it back to you after I go here. I have a lot of things, my notes. Man, I should share my notes. People would just be like, how does that turn into an episode? Because they're just all over the spot. But I started with one, and I want to start here with it because before we go into the themes, some of them that are actually stated. Here's one that is completely stated. What's at stake in this episode and the big theme, at the center of all of it is fear that Star Wars stand by. And the person most afraid is the Emperor, to me. The fact that those alarms ring out shows that he is playing his game. He's doing that Palpatine thing. You touched upon it. Like, I've got a plan. Oh, I need to adjust it, or I got some backups. I got my contingencies. Great. That's Palpatine. It's one of the reasons we love rooting against him. But to me, like I said earlier, this is one of the most powerful Palpatine appearances, and it's all based on his fear of losing control, fear of losing his power, and how does he twist and turn that to sell that to everyone? And it's something that you and I hit upon all the time, the selling of fear, including taking a truth or including taking something reasonable. Protection and safety is not a bad thing. I'm someone that believes that crime is real, but how you decide to fight it is very important and very key to the society at large. And so you got Palpatine taking all that stuff, taking this. Thank you for uncovering it. But it's all this twisting and knotting it up to just protect himself because he's afraid of losing it all. And literally, he's at the center of the episode. Literally, is the center of these two stories here. Cowering in his own way in his office. He's not letting you know, and he's definitely powerful, and he's definitely cocky, and he definitely doesn't think he's going to ever lose it. But at the center is what Bail Organa is saying. He's afraid, and things are already starting to turn. He's already struggling to hold on to what he's earned in his own mind, and I just love that being the big theme behind it all.
Yeah, no, I think that's really powerful, and I think that it's a continued thing with Palpatine of the real world manipulation that has happened forever. Is, hey, if you want people to hand over their power, make them feel strong by declaring that they're standing up against the scary other. And I think what you're talking about is, okay, great. Sometimes you do need defense, right? But who is the scary other? Is the scary other real that we're, trying to defend against? And the scary other that's being presented in this episode is insurgents, right?
Yeah.
But if you break it down from all the other episodes of the Bad Batch that we've seen, the tour of the galaxy under the Empire, those are the people, right? Those are the people who are saying, we don't want the rules that you're inflicting on us. We don't want you to terrorize our communities and destroy our planets and take resources against our will, right? That's the voice of the people that is being choked in the Senate. That's the scary other, right? And that's, I think, what Palpatine is afraid of, right? Like, cannot let people think of any of the pushback against the empire that's happening is legitimate political discourse or the voice of the people. That has to be scary others, insurgents, that can only be met with a massive military response. And once I raise a military, then it will become ingrained in the people that this is what's needed, right? And then years later, you got that conversation that we both love, that you've brought up a lot in Andor, between the senators and the rich people at the Mothma's party, going like, well, yeah, but the empire and the emperor just provide security, right? This is a critical moment where he needs that military to be the one and only true and always answer to anybody questioning him.
Yeah, and that Mothma scene absolutely comes to mind. And again, taking some reasoned, realistic needs, questions, and everything about safety and protection, and just spin it out and using it as a shield to hide what you're doing. And then, how dare you question me? I always the Nicholson speech and A Few Good Men always comes to mind. You sleep under the blanket of freedom I provide and question the way I provide it. I just had this conversation in the real world a couple of days ago. There, ding, 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 our first real world reference here of someone saying, yeah, but you need men like me to protect you from guys like me. And I'm like, wow, what if we just didn't have any of you? What if we just didn't have any of you? And again, I'm someone who believes evil exists. So yeah, I get it. But then you continue, you then are the one who decides who is the evil. And then when we question, well, was that person also evil like the one before? You turn away. There's nothing to see here. Don't question my methods. And that's some of the danger. And that's and then it's easy to be like, well, I am going to sleep safe tonight. So, okay, cool. I guess you got it. And Palpatine loves that, and he's playing upon that. Rampart's playing upon that. Oh, I wish that were the case when he's talking to Senator Chuchi. But it's just, it's so bad out there. So bad out there. Downtown Seattle is out of control. Rampart and my mother. It's just like that stuff is at play all through these episodes.
Yep. In that Solitary Clone episode, I'm forgetting the name of the planet, right? But that planet wasn't a threat to anybody in the Republic. They just wanted to live their life on their planet, right?
Yeah.
And the boot came down. Same thing with the Sereno at the beginning of the season, on and on and on with those examples. That's the story that's being presented in the Bad Batch. So I love starting with fear. I think the place that I started, which is tied into it, is truth. It's right there in the title of the second episode, Truth and Consequences. But I thought that was, to me, like the big overall idea of like, okay, in this era, truth always matters, right? That's what our heroes seem to believe. But in this era, what is it? What will truth get you?
Mhm.
How can you use truth to its inherent advantage? I think in terms of real world stuff, this is obviously an era that we're in with different people just trying to say things more often, louder, only getting information from particular sources. I think all of us being a little guilty of not of retweeting headlines or
Mhm.
articles without reading them, and we're in a crisis of truth right
Mhm.
now in the real world. So I think it landed even harder. But for the way I saw it in this 2 episode arc, obviously the overall mission, what's literally at stake plot wise the entire time, is just the truth that Camino was wiped out by the Empire, that it wasn't even precise an immoral precise
Mhm.
military strike on the cloning facilities, that it was genocide of a planet and a people, a
Mhm.
huge awful truth, right? um but
Yeah.
then there was, I think, more layered versions of this, of Ryo Chuchi, definitely presented as a hero in this episode, and I believe that she is.
Yeah.
She presents a vision of what the Senate and what the government should be. Omega is always great, so great in that second episode as this sort of fresh perspective on all of this, and Chuchi gives her this truth of what the government should be in Omega
Mhm.
with this great fresh perspective, just like, uh, but but it's not that, right? That's not the truth you're clinging to, is not literally true right now. That's a great idea. That's
Mhm.
what the Senate should be and what government should be, the voice of the people. But it's not right now. So I love
Mhm.
that sort of hard look at truth too. It's not just the bad guys obscuring the truth of their bad act. It's wrestling with the truths that we tell ourselves of like, we're holding up an idea, but is it true in practical terms, right?
Mhm.
And good on Ryo Chuchi or Ryo Chuchi for continuing to fight for it, and Bail Organa for continuing to fight for it. But
Yeah.
then the events of this episode show that it's not it, and I love that Chuchi, like, practically like she's some cartoon Bill singing about the way government works. Schoolhouse Rock, describing the Senate as, we serve the galaxy, we act as the voice of the people. Cut to seconds later, Omega looking out at the pods and
Mm.
saying, which one belongs to the clones? And
Mhm.
again, to Chuchi's credit, she's aware that it is wrong, but
Yeah.
the fact that a massive millions of living beings don't have representation means that the
Yeah.
Senate isn't living up to what Chuchi wants it to be.
A government for the people, by the people, not you, not you, not you, which has been scattered throughout the history, and that's something. Yeah, I like what you're saying here. It is the truth. Truth is a hot potato, and everyone's got it, and they're passing it around, and they're trying to either make it real or manipulate it. So I love that. That's at the center of this. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it raises this idea of truth from lots of perspectives, and I think really does a great job. I never like the word manipulating to use against
Right.
the
Right.
manipulating the audience, but playing on our expectations in a great way of like, well,
Mhm.
we know the Bad Batch in Rex and Chuchi can't kind of win, right? The stormtroopers are coming. So how is this going to play out? And I at least kind of expected the like, oh, the truth doesn't get there or it gets corrupted or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but I loved what actually happened, that Palpatine welcomes the truth because he can always find a lie
Yeah.
in the truth, right? And I thought
Mhm.
that was really powerful. That was the twist of this arc, the point of this arc, the button, but it made it even more emotionally devastating
Mhm.
that he blames the clones for the destruction of their home, and particularly uses the very degradation that he forced on them is evidence of
Yes.
their corruption, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not quite a whataboutism. It's more
Right.
like a successful deflection of like, you're
Mhm.
right, that awful thing did happen, that I did. But honestly, when you think about it, didn't they do it? Like
Mhm.
Obviously, it's not as clear as that because he's manipulating the truth. But his quote: "The fact that the clones under his command so blindly followed orders, inflicting such carnage without hesitation, gives me pause." Is just a heart punch, right? After we've been spending so much time with different clones wrestling with who they want to be, wrestling with the honor of fulfilling their purpose of defending the republic, and the best way to do that is to follow orders. And you know, Cody's torture of trying to be, a good soldier, all
Mm,
of their torture, and then to see it just defecated on by
mm.
Palpatine in his chess move is, incredibly powerful moment for the whole journey of the clones.
Yeah, no, well said. Wrapping all that up into this heartbreaking moment, and how Palpatine to me, uh, in a ways takes it. Number one, takes the truth, which we're talking about, but takes maybe your passions, your desire to help, and goes, "Oh, okay, great. Yeah, Padme, you should go back to Naboo. Yes, absolutely. That I totally support that, and I'm going to take that and use that desire to help against you, and I'm going to find ways to do it. And it's heartbreaking because it's heartbreaking in our own world. It's heartbreaking here in Star Wars. You had a lot to talk about the clones, their identity. Um,
Hmm.
but to say, going back to what you're saying about playing our expectations, I thought that's why it was beautiful to have a character like Omega just kind of be there to, number one, okay, well, like you're saying, well, where's our representation, number one, and seeing how it real works, but just have that, there's that look of hope in her face, right? She's so young and hopeful, not naive, young and hopeful. Don't confuse the two, but and to see suddenly it twist and you cut to her face,
Hmm.
among others, Bale, everyone. Bale's probably like, Sheev, not again. But Omega's got this like, we didn't have it. Oh my God. And I just thought that really was a great use of that character, that moment, and what it was trying to do and say.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing Palpatine through Omega's eyes, we saw that clip of it in the
Mhm.
trailer. And wondered, how is this going to happen? And the way she just instinctively retreats into the shadows at the sight of him, you
Yeah.
know, uh, absolutely beautiful stuff. But yeah, seeing the heartbreak of the okay, I'm being raised by four or more dads and now some moms, maternal figures who know the score, know that everything isn't, all sunset and roses, um but still having to really face the like, oh, sometimes truth doesn't matter. And I think that's one of the other powerful moments to me about the idea of truth, to see, after years of living with the clones in the Clone Wars, to see Rex and the Bad Batch, know the truth of Palpatine. He was one step ahead of us during the war, and he's several steps ahead of us now.
Mhm.
And on top of that, just sort of canon, like, oh, they know what Palpatine is. They know what he's up to. They know what he did to them during the war. Um, I love the kind of heartbreaking realization for the entire Bad Batch, but particularly for Omega, that it isn't as easy as just showing people the truth. It's about getting people to believe it, not spin it, embrace the full horror of it. And I think that is, a thing that does make me think of our own troubled times of, I think
Mhm.
I grew up at times with the innocence of like, well, but if the nefarious things are revealed,
Mhm.
if you catch, a person on a hot mic saying the truly awful thing and the truth just gets out, then the sunlight shall break through. And
Dawn
we
on
have,
the fifth day. Looked at
right?
these.
It's so much more complicated than that. People want to protect their own power, so they
Sure.
make excuses for it, or people don't want to face the full horror. Some of the
Mhm.
things that are happening right now are things that have happened previously. We know where they're going.
Mhm.
Freedoms are being taken away. People are being othered and set up for hate and violence, and it's still hard to go, hey, that's happening, because people don't want to embrace the full horror of it. By looking at it in its entirety and seeing the full truth of it means embracing how incredibly frightening that is, how
Mhm.
scary it is, right? And I feel like there's an element of that too, where this is me putting some headcanon into it, but
Okay.
the senators in those pods, isn't it a relief to go, yeah, Rampart did it and he's arrested. What's
Mm.
for lunch?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
done. It's put in a box,
Yeah.
How much more horrible to be Bale, to be Chuchi, to live with, yeah, no,
Mhm.
it wasn't Rampart, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. This is great stuff too. And tying it without specifics into the real world. You talk often of the crisis of truth. I think it's a great way to look at it in a real world and in Star Wars. But here's Palpatine on this pulpit saying, and you know what? Now that I thought about it, those clones did follow those orders pretty easily, right? It's like you want to tweet out, dude, Order 66, man.
Because they're your orders. Yeah.
Your orders. So what does that mean about what you said? I saw some tweets just this week of stuff like that of how dare this? Well, who was in charge when that was put into place? What are you doing? What are you? And now people are going to believe your version of it. And it's just maddening. It's maddening. And here you got just this smooth criminal up there going, now that you all mention it. Well, we didn't mention it. We didn't mention it in those terms. It's frustrating. But also how this episode handled it was important, I thought.
Yeah. I love Omega's just very earnest, but we did the right thing. We told the truth. And Hunter says, and he twisted it to his advantage, and it's just this sort of acceptance of this is a part of this era that it's really, really murky. And sometimes even the truth is not going to shine a bright enough light to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uplifting stuff.
Star Wars. What's funny is you and I are recording this episode on the same day we're recording one of our databank dives. So it is truly, we understand out there sometimes when you just want to talk about silly things in Star Wars. You should do that as well because it gets a little real.
We'll get some silly coming. Yeah. And I'm kind of joking because obviously this is a really, really dark time in the galaxy. But I think the story being told with, Echo and Rex and the Bad Batch themselves and in Omega's joy, that it really is a powerful, like, hey, the light never does go out. You can choose to keep pushing back in the dark times.
Indeed.
So what are some other thematic ideas for you?
Well, you talk about pushing back in darker times, and that talks to me, speaks about and talks about the power of actions you can take. I love where we start. I love Andor and this show both do a good job of beginning important stories in quiet, murky bars and cities, right? So I love where we go and Slip and Cad talking, and there's nothing we can do about it. Let it go. And that starts this whole conversation about actions. And for me, sometimes the actions are as simple as just acknowledging things in your heart, in your soul, in yourself, and there you can go on from there. Where even if this is one of the things I've had a little problem with like the world of comedy or just the digital media space of I have no problem talking about Batman. I have no problem talking about Star Wars. But when I shut my heart out to anything else in the real world and I just don't want to get serious or just don't want to acknowledge it, I'm not taking any actions. The actions do begin with you. And then they go on out. And then if you want to run for office or you want to tweet something out or you want to support something or you want to, start a revolution or whatever it is you're going on in Star Wars, you have Slip kind of telling Cad, just there's nothing we can do. That is inaction and apathy. And you and I think, are both going to mention this quote. So let's just put it on the table now because I think it's the end of this little discussion here, or taking us to the bigger point. Senator Chuchi's quote about curious how speaking up for what's right has become an act that causes a stir, unlike inaction, apathy, or ignorance. This is in a conversation with Bail Organa. That's one of those stop. I've got to write that down. I've got to make sure I get it word for word and not, say it to everyone else in my real life because it was really powerful. And you could tell there's some stuff going on there. And this is, everyone's here we're going to get to the Echo stuff. There's actions and finally making this choice. And there's some emotional stuff behind the Echo thing that I thought they handled well. And then you can get what you do with those actions. There's some stuff I want to talk about, but we got this wonderful conversation with clone rights, the rights of the unrepresented and the underrepresented. But what I loved about that is in taking that action, Chuchi also, it's one of my personal favorite things of trying to understand the needs. So I'm not just a scream for you. I'm going to scream with you. And I want to know what that means. And I want to know what you need from me and what's your fears about it. And I thought that was a powerful moment. It just makes the actions more stronger. But all those actions go back to the start of these episodes with the bar of just someone saying enough and someone being aware. And that's the start of action.
Yeah, no, I love everything you're saying. I think that quote by Rio Chuchi is sort of evergreen, but
Mhm.
um, but speaks to, I think, why sometimes people don't talk about what is truly on their mind, or like you're saying, convince themselves to remain quiet, right?
Mhm.
Because hey, if you speak up, these people are going to shout you down,
Yeah.
and blame you. It's the like, hey, I don't want to bring up politics, at Thanksgiving dinner either. It's not fun, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's that energy of like, you're the problem for saying something true.
Yeah.
Is is it sometimes it can just be a polite agreement. Not today, not now.
Yeah.
Nobody's mind is going to be changed in this setting. Great, that's a polite
Mhm.
agreement. But the sort of larger, you are the one who's causing a problem by pointing out a problem,
Mhm.
is such an effective tool to silence people who are speaking out for
Mhm.
change, to advocate, to
Mhm.
reveal, discuss, address the fact that bad things are happening, right? And that
Yeah.
was particularly powerful. The delivery, the line is strongly written, the delivery was strong, and I think it's, we're living in an age right now where, we have literal bots to shout us down,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and like, hey, if you want to speak the truth on social media, that's fine, but then you're going to be harassed. It's going to take your day,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and that's just one kind of day-to-day example that I wrestle with,
Mhm.
um, but I think it echoes out in lots of different ways.
It really does. It really does. In those words, inaction, apathy, or ignorance.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chosen very specifically.
Yeah, and I kind of thought of some of the stuff that you're discussing from this big picture perspective of the Bad Batch show, of this ongoing question of what's your purpose, right?
Mhm.
Clones
Yeah.
who've been stripped of their purpose, now who are they going to be? That's been an ongoing thing with the whole show. We've talked about it with individual episodes. Caden Slip definitely set the tone, right, that this is a question of who are the clones going to become, what are they?
Mm.
uh Caden Slip at least have the strength to say that those orders were wrong, that was not defense of the
Mhm.
Republic, that was not their purpose, that's not what the clones were created for, that was slaughter, that was genocide, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was really powerful when Cade said, Slip, we're not bad men, but what we did was wrong.
Yeah.
it that first step to say, okay, I'm going to break through the manipulation, I'm going to break through that a good soldier follows orders
Mhm.
BS. uh I am a good soldier and those orders were wrong. So I'm not, saying soldiers are bad. I'm not saying the clones should have never been made. I'm saying we were asked to do something that was wrong. Separating
Mhm.
it from what Palpatine ends up doing is blaming it on them, blaming it on their identity, when
Mhm.
he's like, no, there's nothing wrong with our identity. It's that we were asked by someone else to take an action that we shouldn't. And by separating kind of identity and action in that way, advocating for himself.
Yeah, I thought it was a wonderful moment. I'm glad you're bringing it up here, and this is a great spot to bring it in because I think there's such great truth in that. We're good men, right? And following orders comes up again a few times.
Hmm.
From Flip saying we were following orders to come on, we were following orders, and to Rampart, I was following orders. I was following
Just
orders.
following orders. Yeah.
All that, but I think it's an important component to change is those who are in fact good, but inside of something that is bad. What are you going to do about it? What is your action, and who are you within that? I think that then goes all wonderful stuff with the clones and their identity. The Bad Batch is still struggling with some of their identity. We get to the Echo stuff. You got politicians maybe struggling with their identity. What am I? Am I one of the good ones in a bad system? And what am I going to do about it?
Hmm.
And it's a good conversation to start with these clones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it this question of what's your purpose, who are you going to be, what action are you going to take, what defines you,
Mhm.
continues with the clones. I really like that we had the assassin clone clinging to the identity of being a soldier. Didn't repeat the mantra of good soldiers follow orders,
Mhm.
but kind of came at it from a slightly different perspective. And he insults Rex, and Rex says he calls Rex limited, right? And Rex
Yeah.
says, "What does that make you?" And he says, a believer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we get this picture that he's clinging to the dogma. He doesn't want to have to change. He doesn't want to have to question. He will do anything to not have to question or accept change, similar to Crosshair. Even the clones who aren't, assassins running around trying to murder senators, those clones at the bar. I love the understandably frustrated, angry clone in front when Chuchi's asking, what do they want? What do they need? And he says, I need to stay a trooper. Can you make that happen?
Yeah.
It's not wanting to have to go through this hard process of change and face the future, right? But Chuchi puts that to him exactly, and it goes to what you're saying about choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Where she says, you basically, you're not going to be soldiers forever. You get to choose what your lives will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think then that to me dovetails into everything going on with Echo, right? We see Rex, that Rex is somebody who knows his place and his purpose. He says, more and more of our clone brothers are waking up to what's been done to them. I can't turn my back on them. Rex is solid right now. He knows who he is and what he's doing and why he's made the choice for his new purpose. And I think that was a great emotional scene with Echo and Omega to set everything up. That Echo in his heart knows his purpose and his place. It's to help. And he says he originally came to the Bad Batch because this was where I fit, where I was needed.
Mm-hmm.
And this adventure helping him accept. I understand that the Bad Batch's heart is in the right place, but Hunter's going to keep dragging his feet. This isn't the right place for me, Matt. Now, even though it's my family, my squad, even though I love them, I need to be with Rex because that's my purpose. He's making such a definitive choice about where he needs to help and where he's needed the most.
Yeah, I think it builds wonderfully on some of the stuff in previous episodes. I'm thinking of particularly tech and rat racing. You had talked wonderfully about knowing yourself and the skills that you bring to a situation provides a certain kind of freedom and identity and all those things. So it's like you build on that. You build on that with Echo for me, and to who am I? What am I doing? What are my actions? And going to where you're needed. Echo is finding his next purpose is what I wrote down. And it's an ongoing purpose. You're talking about Rex right where he is. And we know where Rex is going to end up and something's going to happen to him. And he's off a little bit different. And he's always knows who he is. But I think he knows enough to where am I needed next. And that's about growth. That's about change. That's about facing down fear. I think it's very easy to go, cool, I changed. That's it. Thank you. And I love some of the implied tension between Echo and Hunter, and then the very overt understanding and compassion that Hunter has for Echo and where he's going next. And Echo ain't going, well, where are you going? Like, why aren't you with me? They're just, this is where we're needed now. This is how you fight now. This is what your actions are leading to you now. And it's a continued process. And I thought that was really great with Echo, building from his need for connection. He knows himself. I'm someone that I could spend 4 days in complete silence and be good. Echo knows I've had enough of that. That's not me. That's not what I bring to this. And I know where I need to go, and connection and helping those like me who I'm now in a position of power to do so. I'm going to do it. And you'll either get there or maybe you don't. Maybe Hunter, you continue doing what you do, where you do it, but this is where I got to go.
Yeah. And I really love what you're saying. I really love the implication that Echo and Hunter had a heart to heart about it. Right.
Yes.
Because that's the way, he's not making this announcement. Everybody already knows except for Omega, and the way it starts with Hunter, and Hunter says, remember what I said, which I'm think that will obviously play out some more. I thought it was a great connection to the top where Rex of the second episode, where Rex calls with the mission and Hunter is understandably concerned about going into the belly of the beast. And there's no discussion. Echo just says, we're on our way. And I can see that Hunter being like, hey, Echo.
Yep.
And Echo going, I gotta go, man. I understand you're trying to keep the kids safe, keep the family safe, but I can't be here anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that moment. Yeah, and again, I think we say this a lot about Echo. I know I say this a lot about Echo Hunter, of just like, hey, sometimes he's bringing up a valid concern. Sometimes,
almost all of his concerns are valid. I think it's just, yeah. Anyway, it's kind of dovetails into one of the other big picture ideas. It is something that I think is a truth of Star Wars, but you have phrased it really well, of light side builds, dark side destroys. And I think that was one of the things at play. It's such a common Star Wars theme, but I thought we really got to see some of these sort of agents of the light, not the literal light side of the Force, but that metaphor within Star Wars, right? Of Chuchi truly wanting to help, as you said, going to the clones to listen, and also great detail. These episodes are packed full of details that she's having a drink too, right? She's got a drink in her hand.
Yes,
She's like, this is her, like, early 20th century. I'm going to get on the train and I'm going to go to every community. Like there's a politicalness to it, but there's also a sincerity, right? Of it's wrong that you don't have representation. It's wrong that you would just be decommissioned and you sent somewhere with nothing, right? That ties to some real world stuff about issues of how well we are taking care of those who have served, right? But it's reaching out, it's connection, it's building, right? Echo is clearly an agent of the light side in these episodes. He absolutely needs to help. The needing to not be alone after Skako Minor is great, like you're talking about. But in particular, everything with Echo kind of being, I thought I was alone. I thought I was done. I thought no one cared or would ever come for me. Right. And you all did. And so I'm going to spend the rest of my life believing in that and paying my own rescue forward. And again, that's it's about connection, literally not wanting to be alone. And then you contrast that with some of the dark side stuff, right? Obviously, the horror of what was done to Camino, that they blamed it on a storm. They blamed nature instead of their own, mechanical slaughter. The ongoing story of the greed of the senators from the banking clan and the Commerce Guild. Those are the two senators who are advocating for vociferously for the stormtrooper program and are dragging their feet about spending money on providing for the clones, right? That is about selfishness, destroying. But in particular, right, we see a couple of people destroyed by the machinery of the Empire, that they sided with this and were destroyed by it, right? Halle Bertoni, we'll talk about the canon thing, but, from the Clone Wars, she's in the episodes where she is fighting Padme and other senators attempt to de-escalate and resume talks with the Separatists, because greedily she wants the money from more clone production. And how did that work out? She was destroyed by it, right? She's got that great line about Lama Su where she says, Lama Su is too confident the clones were a necessity to the Empire, but none of us are. Smash cut to Rampart being thrown under the AT-AT, right? And having to shout, I was following orders, right? It's this, we've seen it again and again, but it was particularly powerful in this episode, the contrast between the heroes trying to help, trying to listen, trying to build together, and the people who are greedy, selfish, benefiting from the cruelty of the machinery are getting eaten and run over by the machinery.
Yeah, absolutely a good example of light side builds, dark side to destroy all the way through. By the way, I think Rampart learned the Dooku lesson about Palpatine and power, right? I think that look on his face. We've seen that before.
Yep.
Because you got this great little heartfelt and impassioned moment from Omega. I saw the Empire destroy everything, and I'm angry what they did. It's not right. Love Bertoni's line. Love everything you're saying about that, and it all makes me think of, we got this great moment in the episode of Omega meditating, like Gunji taught her, right? And that does not mean, and she, she's not quite there. She can't get. It doesn't mean she's force sensitive, or doesn't mean she can't. It's not a force thing, right? It's a light side thing to me. Of what that says, of just trying to connect, and how the light side maybe isn't rooting for one side here. It's just there, and you either go to it or you go away from it. And it drives a lot of what Omega's doing. We constantly see that all the way through, and I love that, and it all kind of syncs up. And there's just tragedy. Bertoni just kind of, she's one of the last of her people, right? And she's still kind of fighting it. She still has to kind of be convinced to be like, yeah, you're right. It was wrong. Okay. Okay, that's the truth. Yeah, it's not good. Like, wow, sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's vicious, but I think it has, also some real world uh, implications right now where, there's a lot of people who are spouting talking points that are founded on anger and conflict. And what do you know? All those people who were allies in speaking about anger and conflict are angry at one another and in conflict with one another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, for me, last big idea, which I think is a central idea of the Bad Batch as well, but was represented in this episode, is just this idea of home. Um,
Mm.
it was mentioned multiple times that Kamino was home to the clones. It wasn't, the lab where they were born. It was home. Kamino was our home, and we destroyed it, says Cade. Omega, in that quote, you're saying, this is my home, and I was there, and I'm angry. And after the absolute, dark political thriller of the first episode, we start the second episode, and we see this happy home on the Marauder of them napping, and Gonky's back, and he's honking, and Omega's trying to meditate, and we see that just like a deep breath and a sigh, and home, right? Somewhere safe and surrounded, Um, and then I think that idea of home is explored in an interesting way when Omega is kind of given the definition of Coruscant. It's the heart of the Empire. It's the home of the galaxy's government. It's a home in a way, and it's not a warm, happy, friendly place at all, right? And then I think the idea of home, continues with Echo's amazing, painful sadness at one of her dad's, Echo, leaving and saying, "But we're a squad," But I also think, much like with Fee Genoa, there are these maternal presences that Echo is connecting with, learning from. There's a real connection there, where real promises, uh, Omega, that she will keep trying to make things right for the clones. So all these interesting ideas of home and connection.
Yeah, and it's about that connection. It's about that base, not necessarily literal or literal base, but just having that spot to go, the feel of support. And when you're adrift, man, that can be dangerous. And that's why I love a lot of stuff too with Echo. Why he's choosing to do what he's doing. I found a home. I'm going to bring it to others too. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure that we will follow more of Echo's story in this season. How do you feel about that?
I love it as a cliffhanger, right? It was not one I was expecting. Expecting some sort of mid-season event that's going to have some questions about what's coming. I didn't expect that, and not that I didn't expect Echo eventually to make a decision like this, but I don't mean it from like a canon checklist or anything like that, or a plot chart of predictions. I just mean I was like, wow, that I don't know what they're going to do, and I can't wait to see it. And it was small and emotional. In an episode's about big, giant actions, this was just this very simple, powerful action and choice. And that's leading to some, hopefully, a successful missions down the line here.
Yeah. Yeah. One would hope. One would hope. Any other big picture ideas for you?
We got them all. I think let me scroll. Oh, we got them.
Yeah, so much to talk about. We are now going to take a quick break, and then we'll dive into some of the action moments, some of the comedy moments, some of the intriguing canon stuff, all that in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Season 2, Episodes 7 and 8 of The Bad Batch. We've talked a lot of the big ideas. I'm sure they will pop up again as we talk to action, the comedy, the canon, and more. Let's start with action, Ken. Did you have any favorite action moments in these political thriller episodes?
I did. I will say this, though. I've seen both these episodes 3 times at the time of this recording, and there was one viewing where I made some soup. You and I seem to be both talking about soup a lot lately. Made another soup, made some bread, some vegan avocado oil butter, and was like, all over that bread. And I was like, I'm watching these 2 episodes. I'd already seen them once. I'm watching them for action and comedy moments, right? This is those parts of the notes. I'm like, I'm not worried about themes. I'm going to watch this stuff. And I had nothing at the end of it. I had to go back because, number one, I was pulled into the stories. They're that damn good. But 2, I felt even weird. So I do have some choices, but I just want to preface it by saying, even when I'm like, yeah, I like this, I'm like, man, but that, am I celebrating the assassination attempt on Chuchi? What am I doing? What am I doing? So that said, having some fun though, as we can with these episodes. I just want to start in terms of action. I just want to talk about the clone assassin. I thought it was a great design. I love the sound design. They even got, to get the sound production with like even the clicking of the weapons as he's moving around. It's so good, so detailed, and just the action was in the design for me. It was just like he shows up on screen even after he does the first shot, but he shows up with Rampart. It's like this is an action figure in action doing bad things, and I liked it in a weird Star Wars way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought the design was great, and I think it played on audience expectations too of like, ooh, well, who is this new bounty hunter? Why isn't this a bounty hunter we know? Why isn't it Crosshair, right? And set us up for that really well. And with the sound design, it had some great classic bounty hunter sound, but also did disguise the, very recognizable clone voice well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I had some action moments that were like, okay, well, I'm happy that this action happened, so fist pumping and good, and then some like, I'm not happy that happened, but it was cool. First one for me is Slip's escape on the speeder, the using it as cover and then jumping on it in midair was just, we've seen this in a million times of the sniper from above, and how's the person going to get out, but just really kind of using the unique and cool science fiction, space fantasy environment, of course, on to make it cool and then just merge into the traffic. That was awesome.
Yeah, I did love that a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I went to Rex's entrance from the shadows, stunning away. He's, I just, he kind of knew it was Rex, I think, but still to see it from Chuchi's perspective of, the scary person in the hood. I love his action infiltration hood that he wears on Coruscant. So just his entrance was great.
It was a real Star Wars reveal. I love that.
Yeah, it really was. And then I did not like the action of the poor misled clone binding down on his electrocyanide tooth or whatever the databank will eventually tell us that is. But I did like that the suddenness of that action, the horror of that action, and the fact that it just went to the cliffhanger from there of like that's at first I was like, okay, this is a really standard political thriller beat, right? But it was sort of elevated for me by the fact that it was Rex having to continually face this, the clones have been shattered from their purpose and some of us are running from it or trying to find new purpose, and some of us are desperately twisting ourselves into knots to cling to the past to the point where we're willing to really die over it. And then the fact that it just was a cliffhanger, which is like, this is really, really awful. And, it wasn't see you next week because it was released at the same time, but it was great that was just the end.
Yeah. It's a good beat to end on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I only have a couple from the second episode. Do you have any more from either the first or the second episode?
Yeah, I do. I want to shout out the guard, Chuchi's guard. Well, the first one goes, rest in peace. But the second one also goes, but takes that shot and keeps on. What an executive protector there. Just keeping with the mission there. So I like that one there. And I think you and I both... we appreciate a lot of Wrecker's moments. He has that shoulder blocks on two clones later on. And I just like the whole sequence of, mentioned it up at the very top, but sneaking under the speeder. They got the whole, hey, we just make this up as we go along kind of vibe. And that's how we're getting through it. And just sneaking under that speeder with Wrecker, Fred Heights was a fun moment. A little whimsy, but a fun action moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The record double shoulder checking two clones was, that was great. Final one for me is it is Palpatine's rise. It is kind of it's not a traditional action moment. It's not a chase scene or a lightsaber fight. But I loved, we talked about so many aspects that we loved, but I loved that it did feel like so huge that something was breaking, something was shifting. And like I said, I just loved that Omega's instinct is to get farther back into the shadows. It's just, it makes you feel that even people who aren't like, oh yes, I'm force sensitive, I'm force aware. It's just like there's no subtlety to what this guy is ultimately.
Well, yeah, again, you got her meditating and trying to go towards the light, whether she really understands that or not. And then you got her completely understanding what this is, even if she can't say it or express it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because it's the way I think we learn things. We pick up on, like, if you're used to being around your parents, and then somebody who's a problem comes into the room, and your parents act differently, and you sense that as a kid, right? And you know that this guy is not right, and she's sensing all those things.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for me for action moments. Shall we move on to the comedy, the whimsy, and the weirdness?
I do want to shout out
Oh, yeah.
what I called good old file transfer tension. You just mentioned like the political thriller stuff with the side-eye caps and everything, but just like, I love just even in Office Space, can you shut your computer down before Lumbergh asks you to work the weekend? Like just that tension of the files that transferring. Love that.
Well, I hope that's who takes Rampart's place is the big bad and bad batch is Admiral Lumbergh.
Lumbergh, yeah. There we go.
That's a great moment of comedy, whimsy, and weirdness. So there was a moment I saw that on my first viewing, and then I got too engrossed and I missed it. I believe there's a shot when the Bad Batch is leaving at one point where Wrecker's kind of in the back of the cockpit, and he's just eating soup. And we've been talking about soup a lot. Wrecker's your guy, and I was just like, this is made for Ken. So I got to scrub through the episode again. I think really celebrate that moment where Wrecker's just everybody else is on a mission. I'm eating soup.
Hey, that's me. I'm gonna eat soup, and I'm gonna eat soup fast. So yeah, I love it.
A lot of slurping. What were some moments of comedy, whimsy, or weirdness that you enjoyed?
I mean, look, not a lot, right? Not a lot. All the way through pretty tense episodes. There's a tech line, but you're the tech guy. So I'm gonna let you say it. I like Omega's glare at Rampart when they meet in the hallways, when she's at Chuchi and he's walking around with good old Masamita, who we haven't talked about enough yet. Well, I'm sure we'll get there, Canon. But she's just got a great glare. Love.
Oh, yeah. No, the way it was animated, it felt like it was tying back a little bit to the great and infamous Daniel Logan story of Lucas trying to get him to look at Obi-Wan with a kind of a suspicion, dislike, and Daniel Logan not quite being able to get it, and Ewan McGregor leaning down to him and says, hey, when the door opens, just pretend I've just released massive gas. And that's the shot that's in the film. And, Daniel Logan and Ewan McGregor both love telling this story at conventions. I think I've heard it 3 or 4 times. And there's something about her face that is a little bit the way that Boba Fett looks at Obi-Wan when she looks at Rampart.
I think you're right. There you go. That's my headcanon now.
Some good canon. Yeah, I my comedy, whimsy, and weirdness from the first episode is nothing.
Yeah.
There's some animation moments, some acting choices, both in the animation and in the voice performance that is great. But yeah, it's great because it's pretty thrilling, pretty dark. But in the second episode, yeah, the Omega learning meditation from Gunji, just that she did, right, and that she's trying, it's just continues her great journey of really being open to the galaxy, open to new ideas, wanting to understand joy, wonder, calm, at peace. What can I learn from different people, from different cultures? It's just so great across the board.
Love that. Oh, great moment.
Another great comedy moment with Omega's enthusiasm is when Rex introduces the Bad Batch to Choo-Choo, and like, these are the clones I told you about. And we get that relatively rare in Star Wars point of view shot of Rio looking up at Wrecker and then down at Omega, and Omega's real friendly. Hello.
Yeah,
it's a great point of view shot to just put you in Choo-Choo's shoes of like, these are such high stakes. This is such a dark time.
Yeah.
Wow, these clones are. This is who you brought me. Okay. All right. Okay. Great.
Little camera comedy. I like that.
Yep. So that was a big one for me. Others for you?
Just the tech stuff. There's the line is that I love was that will not be a problem when they're trying to get Omega into the Senate chamber, and it's like, oh, he's a code breaker too. He could get into Snoke's boudoir.
Yeah. Maz Kanata never met Tech. I'm just assuming that Tech is still alive, that he's going to live forever.
He is.
Yeah, but yeah, I actually did love is the action moment using the escape pods, just to
Mhm.
as launching devices, and yes, the great tech line of I was off by 6.4 meters, not my best.
Mhm.
Even analytical in his self criticism, which
Yeah.
relatable, very very relatable, and all of Recker's looking down stuff. I think that's great. Continuation of his, not looking down, not looking down. This is him better. All great stuff with Wrecker.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's get into a bit of canon. This is one quick thing that I wanted to throw out here. I don't know, maybe for some people it's not their favorite, but I bring it up again because of the ongoing conversation that happens about whether or not Star Wars is political. As always, I really get wanting to spend some time with Star Wars. That's for escapism and wonder and taking a break from the difficulties of real life politics. I get that, but uh, just as a reminder that it's baked in.
Mhm.
Lucas pretty famously named some of the greedy corporate figures after real life politicians, right? I think in this, Halle Bertoni sure sounds a lot like Halliburton.
Yeah.
Military provider that has political influence. And what is Halle Bertoni's story? She came from a planet that provided military and then used that to get a seat in the Senate where she now has the power to constantly vote and lobby that the government should pay her more money. Um, so Halle Bertoni's presence made me think of this. I was just looking up which senator is which, right?
Mhm.
In the
Mhm.
credits and the Ishitib senator, who's clearly been placed as the new puppet to be in charge of the banking clan, who also has Senate representation. Um, in the credits, he's Senator Raduli. But I Googled him, and he's already up on the StarWars.com databank, and his name is Ghani Raduli, which, if you look at it for a second, pretty quickly end up at Rudy Giuliani. Uh, So just wanted to point out that this is a long-standing thing with
Yeah.
this storytelling in Star Wars,
Mhm.
started by George Lucas himself. And in my opinion, I got no facts. I'm just looking at this evidence and coming
Yep.
to a conclusion. Other people can come to their own conclusions. A tradition that is clearly continuing.
Yeah, absolutely. Did his hair dye roll down his face there in that Senate chamber pod? We'll find out. We'll look at the close inspection. No, I love it. And look, I want to say something too. When we say, hey, sometimes you just don't want to talk politics of Star Wars, it doesn't mean that we're saying you're not engaging. Sometimes the world, the way it's going right now, sometimes you just want to watch some dumb ghost chasing reality show and eat ice cream. That is part of keeping your own sanity. And I
Hmm.
want to make sure we're clear about that too. And I know you are. But to drive it home there, yeah. But yeah, that's hard. It's hard. It's upset. And look, I'm a lifelong fan of the show The Simpsons. I think they missed the boat so big on their Phantom Menace episode in some of the things that they talked about. One of them being just making fun of the boring politics in episode 1. I know that's the national, worldwide, global conversation about those movies, particularly back in 1999. I think it's a big miss. I
Hmm.
think people get excited about it. I think you see the Senate chamber, just one of the most wonderfully designed locations in Star Wars. You have that great shot of Omega sliding down as she hands the evidence in, and she's slides down and you go out into the chamber there with Organa. I think it's exciting. I think more people are engaged with it. Not everyone is, but to see Tendra Pamlo from Rogue One there, Organa,
Hmm.
Chuchulik, kind of the all-star of political all-stars kind of showing up for the game here. It, I think, is it's fun canon. It's fun lore connection, and also has, important ramifications to the story in our world if you're listening. So I just love all that. I love that it showed up again.
Yeah, and I love that. I think for a lot of people it really has changed, right? That
Mhm.
that these episodes aren't like politics. I think
Yeah.
that was so a perspective from the expectations that the original trilogy generation,
Mhm.
grew up with. That Lucas, it is political. There's the Senate is wiped out in the first Star Wars story, right?
Mhm.
The novelization starts with the political backstory. This was always political to Lucas, but in the original trilogy, he didn't,
Yeah.
have the room, the scope to share it as much. And then it became to us like Star Wars is about dodging asteroids,
Yeah.
not voting on bills. And I get the comedy from that perspective because there's a contrast to the way we people of our generation grew up with it, but I think that time has passed, and now it's been a strong, clear part of Star Wars for decades now.
Indeed. And will continue to be, I'm sure.
Exactly, and gets us cheering. Yeah, I love that you mentioned Tinra Pamlo from Rogue One. Her quote in the Rogue One briefing, where Jen is trying to convince them to do something about the Death Star. If the Empire has this kind of power, what chance do we have? Says Tinra Pamlo. Understandable, but connects to some of our themes. All right, so going into some other things here. I thought that this was maybe some clone aging clarity.
Ooh, thank you. I wrote that down. Yes. Go into that.
Yeah. So this other senator from the Commerce Guild, who I did not find a name for, just the Commerce Guild senator, with great voice and great animation, with the weird little shakes and the way that she says everybody's name like it's an insult. Senator Organa.
Senator Chuchi. Yeah.
Yep. So great stuff, but she says the clone army cannot sustain given their accelerated aging and should be slated for decommissioning. So we recently had this question on our Cues of the Force podcast, and I'm happy to learn new canon. Put it that way. I always took it as the clones were had accelerated aging up until 20 when they're then ready for service. But it would appear that I have been canon corrected by a Bad Batch. Happy to own up to it. So how do you? What's your take on that? How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts?
I just love it. I don't take it as a correction on anything you or I might have said or believed for years. It's just like you said. It's updated information. It's new. It's answers, and it's both fun as a Star Wars fan. I think important to the story. I mean, this was like Chuchi's telling him, this is going to happen regardless. Let's try to control it. Let's give you a choice in this matter. So I think it was an important discussion around it. Again, this is an episode that is dealing with the aging of the clones, the onset of the Imperial Stormtrooper program. Those are big canon checklist moments that we love from that point of view. But the story wrapped around him is so important. It's the why versus the how that we love celebrating here. But I just love seeing it dealt with, and I love the truth, and I love it just right there. Talking about the truth being a hot potato, that's a truth to hold on to. The clones are going to age out. So there it does become this kind of real concern, and it's fair to ask about it. But what do you do with that, and how do you sell that, and how do you use that to build your power is what this is all about. But it was fun to have it explored.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I'm intrigued by the clarity because I think it adds to the storytelling, and we'll see where they go with Rex's story in what medium and in what year. But the vibe that I got from my rewatch of Rebels is that it's not like Rex is like has apathy or doesn't care. It's a little bit more that vibe of just like, what more can I do? I'm an old man. This isn't my fight anymore. You know, I'm. Do I still have use? And then he really, comes back to life. He's like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Which to me, it adds to that perspective. If the conversation has been for years and years, you are just aging too fast. Your fighting days are over. It puts him, his biological age in his mid 50s in Rebels.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Syncing it up to that beard.
Of course, aging is always weird in Star Wars, so who knows? Anything else on that?
No. Again, I love what you said there, and love that it was part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was obviously a ton of connections to the Clone Wars animated series. That's not shocking, given that Bad Batch is a spin-off / continuation, depending on how you want to look at it. But some really specific, connections, deep dives from the Clone Wars. The 79s Club, which was introduced in the Fives arc, where he discovers the inhibitor chip. It was great to see that, and also see it not quite as packed or lively.
Yeah.
A harder time for the clones from even back during the Clone Wars when they're having a hard time. Obviously, Chuchi is from the Clone Wars animated series and an important character. Her first, she's really slated in the Clone Wars animated series and across a lot of the publishing as this sort of group of bright young optimistic women leaders, right? Padme, Satine, Chuchi, the leader that we meet in the Master and Apprentice book. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Sure.
So that idea that she represents a very Star Wars idea of, foster the younger generation, for they will become leaders of the future. And in her first appearance in the Clone Wars episode Trespass, which is one of my favorites, she's just taken baby steps into leadership, right? One of her other big episodes is the Sphere of Influence episode that really focuses on Bera Papanoida, the character played by George Lucas, who has a laser fight in the cantina with Greedo.
That's right.
But Chuchi in general she's just always been one of these political figures that the Clone Wars almost sets up as like, she's important, she's a big deal. So it was finally great to see her kind of step up to the sort of that level of Bail of Mon Mothma, of one of the senators who's trying to hold the line,
Yeah, no, she's that kind of hotshot freshman senator that's now a few years into her career and is part of the leaders of this party, so to speak. I love that, and you see that in, of course, the real world too. And again, this roll call of all stars, it just warmed my heart. It just warmed my heart because I wasn't expecting her. I was expecting Bale at some point, and Pamela's not the super focus of the episode, but it's great. But the curtains part, and there comes Chuchi. It was a great intro and great use of the character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we already talked about Halle Bertoni a little bit. In the episodes that she is central in, some of the most political episodes of the Clone Wars, of the Heroes on Both Sides, Pursuit of Peace, Senate Murders, that is all about Padme trying to get the Republic to de-escalate, not order more clone troops, because it will escalate the war, and use the money that's needed to help people who are suffering during the Clone Wars. Halle Bertoni gets the win and gets the money. And then something happened since then. So those are some of the Clone Wars connections I wanted to talk about. I want to ask you about the question that's sort of raised by the end of the episode, but not fully addressed. Because I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on it and what future storytelling you might want. So in the Senate deliberations, as we're catching up with them, it seems like Rampart and the other senators have given in to the provisions that Chuchi wanted in the bill that would have provided for the clones.
Yeah.
But then Palpatine makes his statement of like, actually, it really was the blind allegiance of the clones that did this awful thing. Do you think that not only the bill passes to start the Imperial Stormtrooper program, but do you think the provisions get stripped? Or just that they're publicly, they're there and then they just get diverted in back channels? Because I can't imagine Palpatine actually wanting the money to go to the clones. We see the clone having a hard time on Dayu in the Kenobi TV show. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's a great example to bring up. I think at the most realistic thing is probably, it's in there, and then it'll get bogged down in bad websites and other policies and everything. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I look at it. But no, I think I took it as offer void if to the clones, right? Sure, we'll take care of you. But did you? You got? I don't know. Y'all seem to just follow orders without questioning things. That's not good. So no, thanks for you. So that's why I took it. Just because the reality of it, and again, going to the reality of politics and the nature of compromise or what's there. I mean, maybe Rampart's not 100% lying when he's like, that's going to cost a lot of money. So I get that. Yeah, totally. And Chuchi's like, cool. Then you're not prepared to do what you need to do or what you say you're going to do. It's not the time. A smart response, but I think Palpatine, I think he wiped it all away with that alarm.
Yeah. Yep. And the clones are talking, the Bad Batch and Rex and Chuchi are all talking at the end of like, what is the fate of the clones going to be? It's not like, oh, well, at least he got those provisions. It seems like a loss, from their perspective. So
yeah, don't seem good.
Do you think we're going to follow up more on that? Do you think we're going to get stories of clones, saying, hey, I went to this office on Coruscant for my alleged, new work employment program, and they told me it was full, but there were no other clones there. Do you think we're going to get a story like that?
Look, I'll tell you what, I want that. And I know that that wouldn't be, the service a popular episode pitch, but I want that. I was thinking about this. I'm glad you mentioned it. Just enjoying these episodes in so many ways and being moved by them, inspired by them, it causing some fear in me for the real world. But the clone thing of just like, you know, you have again this 19 years where from A to B, a lot of things happen. And this is one of those on the road to B with the clones. And it's fascinating of them being mentioned, but gone, right? Essentially, and after that, and yes, the new canon Rex and all these people show up and maybe some of them are Battle of Endor. Totally get it. But we're going to get that kind of stuff. And I'd love to, we get it with Rex, and you mentioned it in Rebels, but a story of like, I know my time is truly finite, right? And quicker than yours. And what does that do for me? I was bred for war. Now who am I without that? And I don't have a lot of time to figure it out. That could be some pretty powerful storytelling if you bring it in certain ways. And that it might begin with a clone going to the clone insurance office.
Yeah, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. For me, last thing is the garage that Rex was using. I took that as Trace and Rafa's garage. Did you as well?
Totally. And it looks like not only is it fun to kind of indirectly mention them and keep it open of they're not here right now. They're doing something. But also it's like that's a good use of animation backgrounds that you already probably got built. Good budget.
Exactly. Why make a new garage when we already got one?
Yeah.
Any other canon things that you wanted to discuss?
Rolling down, I think you got them all. Gonky's his own canon, so I'm glad he was back there. The suicide, you mentioned the suicide capsule thing that I now consider that canon for Bosch and Mando. Oliver and Mando.
Oh yeah, you're right. I was thinking when I said we hadn't seen it before, like, but we have, haven't we?
Anyway, I mean, it could be, there's 13 different ice spiders in Star Wars now, so it could be something different. But I like seeing that. I do want to. We got to say Masamita and Palpatine walking stick. It's just, everything about him. He's a fascinating character because there's so many questions around him. You got Stephen Stanton as a voice back again doing that. Love that. But he's such an interesting character because it's like all the things he knows and all the things he's did. And he's this public face. He's the mouth of Sauron for us here with Palpatine. And just liquor. Just I'm fascinated. I know a lot of folks out there. I've seen a lot of Masameda stuff lately from Ken Plume over Force 5 to Scotty over at Bombad Pocket. A lot of people talk about Masameda in the last couple of weeks. So we're in a Massa-sance.
I love it. Yeah. Cause I mean, just a background character in the prequels, right? But then as you sort of flesh out the reality of that government becomes an extremely central figure, one of the desperate holder honors after the events of the original trilogy, the one who actually signed the concordance that the Galactic Civil War was over and the Empire was done, right? To this, probably his absolute heyday, right? Of like, I know exactly how awful everything is. I know every awful thing is done, and I am down with it. Loved it. And then in contrast, great to see Bale there, and as we get more and more clarity on, he's whispering in the shadows, taking these small risks, really trying to help, trying to keep the guardrails of democracy up in the Senate the best as he can, but at the same time, going into the shadows to have meetings and get information.
Yeah, and the great Phil Lamar doing a wonderful job with that voice as always. I think he really captures a great Bale vibe.
Yeah, a great performance by Phil there. Absolutely. Was there anything that you disliked or questioned in these two episodes?
No. I mean, no. That's we're not here to. We're not reviewers. We're discussers, and if I got something that doesn't work, I'll dance around it. From the first shot to the last, these were two of the best episodes. Episode 3 this year has been up there. And, I'm not here we have fun ranking things in Star Wars, but we're not here for serious ranks. I don't think that's what we do, especially now. So I'm not comparing this to anyone else, any other show, but this was up there with some of the best storytelling the last couple of years in Star Wars. I really believe that, especially with the Palpatine moment and to tying in these big canon things, just playing around in this world of Star Wars. So no, I never questioned anything about these things.
Yeah, I did not dislike anything in this episode. This story,
Mhm.
I think the overall getting to see the true birth of the Imperial Stormtrooper, in the words of Ian McDermott, and having it
Mhm.
so beautifully set up to have this devastating idea about how fragile even truth is,
Mhm.
and still have a sense of light, of hope in the darkness. Absolutely great stuff. I
Mhm.
will say this: I was thrilled to get an answer to the question we've all been screaming: where is Gonky? Is he safe? Is he all right?
Mhm.
Turns out, yes, but he is lonely. So there, I dislike that. That somebody play with Gonky. He's so lonely, wandering up and down the ship, honking for something. What does Gonky want? Ask him. Come on.
Ask him about his needs. Yes.
Yep. Yep. Come on. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on?
No, no. I mean, we laid it all on the table here today. Great stuff going on, and I know we always. If you're listening by this point, you're not one of these folks. So I know Star Wars animation or animation in general doesn't always work for everyone, and there can be shows that you're more interested in others. That's always going to be the case. I just I love shouting out to the rooftops about how great this show is and what it's growing beyond the premise, right? And I
Yeah.
saw there was someone, I think it was Lucasfilm employee, someone tweeted out, I don't know what it was. They're like, man, I remember being in the rooms when like the Bad Batch was being conceived and pitched and discussed years ago, and to actually see that being realized was emotional or whatever they said. I'm paraphrasing. I even forget who it was. It wasn't like a story group member or something. And I thought, oh man, what a wonderful thing. They knew because you and I even expressed some dubious feelings about the Bad Batch. We're getting A-Team. What do we go? Is that them? And they've just done a wonderful job of just taking this show into some very important areas of Star Wars.
No, I totally agree with all that. And yeah, I think people love Andor for many reasons. I loved Andor for many reasons, but yeah, I do think that I hope that there are some Andor viewers who they like Star Wars being a little bit more blatantly political. I'm really curious to see if some of those people could get into the animated version of that exists in Star Wars, because I thought this was so
Mm-hmm.
complementary to so many of the ideas in Andor.
Yeah. 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 Tremendously complimentary.
Final thing for me that I wanted to touch on is, we've talked a lot about how beautiful the animation is. I felt like there's this one moment with cool action moment where Slip uses the speeder for cover and gets on, merges with traffic, and then his cap kind of almost blows off the speeder bike.
Mm.
And that almost felt like a moment where the animation team was going to said, let us show you what we can do. Let us show you how far we've come from the first season of Clone Wars, where nothing on a person's body could ever move. They were glued into those robes, right?
Yeah.
Ripple, what are you talking about? Wind blowing off a hat. A hat's a part of their anatomy. That's not, no.
Yeah.
It was so, I don't know. It just popped to me of like, we can do this now, right?
Yeah. They can get this thing up to 88 miles per hour, and they do. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That. Yeah, Corso was just beautiful. I don't have like a 4K TV or anything like that. I've seen some people tweeting out some stuff already where I'm like, can I come over to your house and watch? Because just gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. We always try to wrap up with a fun question of if we could have an action figure or merch of any kind inspired by these two episodes. Ken, what would you want?
I do want a new Masamita animated edition figure. I do, I love the photorealism stuff we got going on. I'm a big, fan of the 6-inch Black Series line. So give me more of that too. But just some Bad Batch animation style figures, and give me a Masamita. I'm obsessed. I know you're obsessed with his tongue because of the figure. I'm obsessed with his little walking stick with the Palpatine thing on it. It's so bizarre and bootlicking. He's such an interesting character. So I want that. I want that. And then I do think we all need the Palpatine arrives to the meeting alarm on our phones. If you want to wake just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Cause it's a different sound than the standard alarm. It's different. Yeah.
It's a heralding.
Yeah, I got that Rise of Skywalker era restored Emperor minibus. I don't know how many Emperors I need staring at me. I got one on my desk too. This is one of those joke products that if it existed, I'd probably buy it. I don't know if I'd actually put it out, but I think you're right about alarms. We should have an old school analog alarm clock of Palpatine when it's time to wake up, rises with that alarm sound, and then you actually get to bop Palpatine and put him back down to snooze.
All for that. All for that.
Yeah. And I think action figures, man, it's always weird to say, here's what I want. I want the Bad Batch. All of them now in vintage. Hunter's been announced, so they'll come. Anyway, add to the pile. I love this Rex's sort of casual clone in the shadows look, rogue agent Rex. I want that action figure.
That's great. Oh, yeah. I love that.
It's a very, very good look for Rex. All right. That is our big look at these great 2 episodes of The Bad Batch: Clone Conspiracy, Truth and Consequences. Ken, you want to let people know where they can find us?
Yes, I do. We are on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod, Hive Social at ForceCenter, if you're over there. We are on Facebook, ForceCenter Podcast, Instagram, and yes, YouTube, where we have figure fights. We got some shorts going on. You want to get some Gentle Giant statue reviews? We got that. I've started doing this thing, and Joseph and Jennifer, we all go out in the world, and Star Wars finds us. So if a toy finds me, I'm going to share it with y'all. It's over there. Join the YouTube fun over there. Doesn't mean we're not focusing on the podcast side. Clearly, we're here for these deep dives. Subscribe if you would like to over there. You can get merch at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. I've already seen some folks with some new Force Center shirts for celebration, prequelish shirts, speculate responsibly shirts. Check over there. And you can find the podcast on a lot of spots, including Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. We always love the support, but we'll say this. We got some announcements. We got some things. We got some stuff in store over on that side as well. Follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com, for information on comedy shows, my music show, Pop Rock and Radio, my podcast, The Blathering. It's all there at kennapzok.com. Where can they go for you, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media is at Joseph Scrimshaw. In particular, you can also check out my YouTube page. You can go to YouTube and search for Joseph Scrimshaw. I want to thank everyone for the kind support as I make more short films, comedy bits, and put them up on YouTube. I recently released a new cosmic horror, darkly comic short film called Unboxing the Cosmos. I originally made it with the intent of submitting it to film festivals, and I did have it at a film festival. It was great. I decided to put it on YouTube. The short is kind of about asking for engagement, struggling with being in internet presence, and I didn't really think about when I was making it the irony of then having to promote it. So go check it out and enjoy the irony there. That is it for us, for myself, for Ken, for the return of Gonky. This has been the Bad Batch Report.